All right, now in section 11, our subject is still the friend of Pliny's uncle from Spain. So we can imply an ile if we want, that one, or he. If we were to do is, so either ile or is. That one having delayed, not further, or not beyond this. So in other words, with no further delay. He snatched himself, and this means somewhat idiomatically to run off, peropit se. Literally, he snatches himself with a run having been poured out. This is another sort of idiom, which would mean like just with his absolute most speed and haste that he could have escaped. So that one not having delayed further, he snatched himself with his run having been poured out, meaning running as fast as he can. And let's see, he removes or withdraws, is moved or is withdrawn, alphator, from the danger, ablative of separation. Nor, after this by much, or nor much after this, that cloud and then here we have a historical infinitive. Stodman has a good note for this if you're using Stodman's book on the next page. And a historical infinitive, just sort of in short, often come in quick succession with one another, and we're going to have one here, descendere, operie, and I think we have another one a little bit further down. But it means like it's trying to indicate quick, rapid succession, and so it sort of takes the place often of a full indicative verb. So here we can ultimately say something along the lines of that cloud was descending upon the earth, and it was covering the seas, or even the water for Maria. Then the cloud surrounded, kinexerat, Capri, and hid it. At Mencium, this is our locative. And here we're also going to imply an id. And we're going to translate that id as that part. It's accusative id. So the cloud is still our subject for abstulerat. It had hidden id, that part, quod, which runs out. And this would be like the peninsula part of Mencium. All of that got covered by the cloud. Here's another set of historical infinitives. So again, we'll translate these as imperfect, and they were all happening with nearly simultaneous or quick successive action. So we have to beg, to encourage, and to order. And mother is doing all of those things. So then my mother was begging and encouraging and ordering that I should flee. First person subjunctive, I should flee. And then we have an ablative of manner, quoquo modo, something along the lines of like in any way possible, or in whatever way, an implied possible, I should flee. Now the semicolon here is going to denote that Pliny's going to slip into indirect statement, kind of paraphrasing what his mother was saying. And we're really going to have this contrast between Pliny being a young, able-bodied person who was capable of fleeing, and his mother concerned that she, in fact, wasn't going to be able to keep up, and she might actually be a liability for her own son's escape. So she was saying that it is possible, or that I was able, as a young man, and that she, the say, referring back to herself as an accusative subject of the indirect statement, that she was burdened, gravem, with years and with respect to her body, so just not as able-bodied or as physically capable. And she was also about to die, it's a future participle, about to die well, with the condition, and this would be a future more vivid, if she would not be, and so here as the she, because this is a subjunctive conditional, we're still an indirect statement, but the grammar becomes a little bit more normal, but we're really implying an ea, referring to his mother saying this about herself, that she, non fuesset, would be, if she would not be, a cause, that's going to be predicate to her, would not be a cause of death for me. So that's how she would die well, so long as she was not the cause of death for her son. So to put all of that together, I was able, as a young man, in other words, to escape. That's why I should escape in any way possible. Starting at the say, she, gravem, burdened by years and by her body, she about to die well, if she would not be the cause of death for me. And now we're going to need to imply some sort of replying verb. I replied against. And actually, that's going to be a little bit more adverbial. Or I said in reply, or I said against her words. Turn that to an adverb. That I, this is our subjective indirect statement, the may, and our infinitive, which is of course functioning as our main verb, would not be, for our future tense infinitive. So we're implying an essay to finish this off in our full infinitive form. And as we've seen with so many things with Pliny, you usually are implying these forms of sum, whether they're parts of infinitives or even the main verb of a sentence, so that I would not be salvum, safe, nisi, except una, together, or as one, meaning with her. So in other words, he's not going to abandon her, and he really feels like he's still going to need her there for any type of safety or security. Then, having embraced implexus, the hand of her, kogo, I compel, and then we need our subject of this very short indirect statement, which will be an eam, accusative subject. I compelled her, eam, to adere, to give a step. In other words, to go forward. She obeys wearily, or with difficulty. Accusing herself, quod, because she delays me. In other words, giving herself a hard time that she's slowing down the overall escape. And moretur is deponent, so that's deponent present, active, subjunctive, and so, again, we'll put the mother as the subject of that verb to delay. All right. Now, there was ash, ad hoc. To this point, nevertheless, we could say sparse, scattered, or, sparse is fine. Here and there for rarus, and that's referring to the ash. I look back, and a densa or thick vapor or cloud was threatening and this would be tergis either from behind or from our backs. Because remember, he looks back, respicio, and so from that backwards direction. This is almost adverbial here, but literally from our backs. I would say that's sort of probably an ablative of origin where that dense vapor was threatening. Which, quae, was following, sequebantur, and nos is the direct object, which was following us, having been poured out. That's modifying the quae, which is going back to this this dense vapor, sort of misty cloud, having been poured out in the manner, very obvious ablative of manner, because modo is in the manner or in the way of a flood on the earth. Terrae as a dative. All right, so I look back, respicio, densa caligo, a dense vapor was threatening from behind, starting down at quae nos, which was following us, having been poured out in the manner of a flood on the earth. All right, let us turn aside, or change course, I said, inquam, while we still see, or while we are still able to see, and then we'll have a negative purpose clause here. So this will not happen. So remember, the best way to do this is to use the word lest, L-E-S-T, lest we be trampled having been knocked over, strati, in the road by a crowd of friends, comrades, or companions in tenebris, in the darkness, or in the shadows. Gives you a sense of just how thick that vapor cloud was that was starting to close in upon them. All right, review that one more time while everything's still fresh. This section's a little more difficult than the past couple that we've tackled, and we will go over it once again in class.